Well, hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Jeff Oberl. I'm the Training and Development Manager here for Cadden Community Management. We're going to spend a little bit of time today talking about a great feature we offer is Cadden Quorum. It's an online voting platform that we've had a lot of success with and hopefully can share that with you and your communities. We're going to be joined today, as you see here, by Steve Spain with Sodal Technologies, and he's going to go through all the demo and information about this. Please use the chat. I'll monitor that through the session and ask Steve those questions as they come in. We'll also have a little bit of time at the end for any Q&A that comes up at that time as well. So without further ado, Steve, I will turn the floor over to you.
Well, thank you very kindly, folks. Good evening. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with us this evening. I understand I'm probably sitting between you and dinner, so I'll try not to take up too much of your time, but I absolutely will entertain any questions that you ask as we go. And don't hesitate to ask them as we go, Jeff. If they come in while we're talking, please relay them and let's get them answered while they're hot on people's minds. I prefer to do it that way. So again, good evening. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am. My name is Steve Spain. I am the founder and chief technologist of Sodal Technologies. There we are. And I come from a background of having been a board president for a beautiful association. I continue to reside in that same neighborhood, and I'm very proud of what we accomplished then and how this neighborhood continues to run. But I understand the burdens that you feel and the choices you have to make as board members, having been there, having done that. And that's going to come into play as we explain how this product evolved. My background is actually in information technology, specifically in the hospitality sector. So even though I've always had that technical bent, there's very much that part of my nature that is all about being hospitable, how we treat our neighbors, how we approach them, and imbuing into technology that spirit of hospitality. So I come from a long and storied background with Starwood Hotels and Resorts, which is now part of Marriott. I was on the Americas IT team with them, and was proud to be supporting a large number of hotels and again, bringing that hospitality into technology. I'm also proud to tell you I've got my PMP, my project management certification, so I have a vast and wide enough background to deal with the kinds of challenges that our boards handle. And like I said, I handled in that capacity as well. We founded Sodal Technologies a few years ago with the express purpose of helping local entities, not just local businesses, but local boards as well, local HOAs. I've got a local focus. We've focused our business locally just here in Arizona, and that also comes into play in just a moment or two. So we're obviously here to talk about one very specific benefit that we offer to you. So I'd like to welcome you to Cadden Quorum. This is bespoke online voting for Arizona communities following Arizona law, meeting the needs of entities here in the state of Arizona. We've had a lot of success, as Jeff mentioned, and I'm going to ask Jeff to speak to that here in just a moment, but we've already helped over 25 communities. Many of them have been repeat customers. We have successfully conducted dozens and dozens of elections so far, some of them being your very rote, routine, simple, here's the folks who are running again, nobody else has stood up, but we need your vote anyway. Some of them being as far as very contentious ballot measures, very contentious amendments to the governing documents, for example. And we've been able to get those passed and get them through where it's been appropriate. We haven't yet failed. With the asterisk on it, I do want to call that out. We've had a couple of elections where we've had to end it early for one reason or another. We had one of them where the association was going to vote on a major road improvement project, and just a day or two before the end of that election, City of Tucson opted to take over their roads for them. So we didn't ever finish that election. We didn't need to. I think we would have finished it. We had the votes, I believe, but I can't claim we finished that one. We had another one where we actually had a candidate. This was kind of funny. We had a candidate decide to run, decide not to run. We kicked off the election. The candidate decided to run again. So we had to throw that whole election out, redo the whole thing. Again, we had the votes. I believe that one would have succeeded, but we can't call that one a win because we did have to end it early. So there have been a few funny stories along the way. But that's the nice thing about having something that is built for these Arizona communities that's locally operated. We work with you as a board, with your association manager through Cadden, to make sure that we're providing what you need and responding to what happens in your community as the election's going on so that we get you the success you want. And I mentioned I was going to ask Jeff to speak to that a little bit. You've had a number of your managers over the years use this solution. What's the general feeling? What's the general impression of Quorum?
Very positive, Steve. It's been nice because a lot of communities that have used it haven't had Quorum for quite a number of years, and we're almost giving up hope. Sending out their ballots year after year, spending the money on postage and so on. And when they used it, they were surprised, and so were the managers, that sometimes we would get Quorum within a day or two. So it's been a very pleasant experience with a lot of success. So it's been very good.
I'm really happy to hear that. That's what we engineered this product to do, is to bring that success and that level of comfort and relief to boards and the community managers, for that matter, to make sure that we will meet our legal obligations as an HOA, complete our elections, hold our annual meetings, and get that documented for posterity. So that's what we're trying to do. The reason this whole product came about is because of actually the year that I took over as the president of my HOA board. The election that put me into that position didn't go so swell, not because we had trouble with the election, but because the count at the annual meeting somehow just did not work. We went through, and it's been a few years, somewhere between 6 and 8 recounts. And in more than one of those, write-in candidates who weren't even named on the ballot were somehow leading all of the named candidates, which almost never happens, right? Highly unlikely. It took that many iterations of counting before we finally had numbers in which we could feel confident, that we could trust, and gave us a definitive answer as to who had been elected to the board. As the leader at that point, I absolutely had no interest in ever seeing that happen again. And that's when, as a matter of fact, Jeff had taken over our management shortly after that. And it was Jeff himself that I asked to go out and do some digging to find out what's out there in the form of online voting. How can we prevent this mess in the future? And Jeff, I remember to this day when you called me one afternoon. I was actually, oddly enough, visiting family up in Idaho, and I was sitting in the car outside the hotel when Jeff gave me the numbers for some of those quotes, and my jaw hit the floor. It didn't make sense. Even for the size of our association, upwards of 500 units, the cost was too high. It was exorbitant. And again, being the responsible leader for the association, the last thing I wanted to do was commit us to that kind of expense. It didn't seem right. So, coming from the background I have, with the support of Jeff and the very intelligent and capable folks at Cadden, we ended up rolling Quorum. So we talked about that bad hand count. We talked about the pricing. What we didn't mention that ties back to my hospitality background is making sure that we tie into that neighborhood feel and making sure that every communication that comes out of this system feels neighborly. It's not cold. It's not sterile. It's not harsh. It's meant to encourage participation, and to do so gently, and if you'll trust me on this one, generously. So I really don't like to look at it as where we came from. I like to look at it more as what are the problems that we solve through Quorum. Of course, to be able to do that, we have to get it right. Some of the ways that we do that are making sure that we secure the entire process. And if you'll notice as you look on your screen, and Jeff, are we still sharing the screen just to verify?
Yes, you are.
Good. Just wanted to make sure. If you notice what you see on screen there, obviously for all of our links, we use the very latest in encryption technologies, the exact same that your bank uses to make sure that any traffic back and forth is encrypted, is safe, is secure, is trustworthy. The other thing we do is ensure that every single member in your association has a unique identification code, unguessable, so that we can prove whoever it was that went in and voted that ballot online was properly in possession of it, or of that invitation that we send out, that it's the right contact voting the right ballot for the right meeting. That's how we keep it secure. We also talk about messaging. Again, the friendly terminology that we use. These aren't residents. These aren't owners. These are our neighbors. And we address them as such. These are folks that we want to come along with us on this journey of getting you reelected to your board or bringing new blood in. You don't do that by dragging them the hard way. You do that by being inviting and welcoming. And that's the tone that we take. Even in those situations where we've gotten close to the wire, we haven't quite made quorum, and we've really had to put out the hard ask to get people to participate, we still do so in that inviting manner. And like I said, with the exception of those couple elections we never finished, we have successfully reached quorum with every election we've run. Mentioned sometimes we have trouble down towards the end. We haven't quite drummed up the participation. That's where we drive that participation using electronic means by sending out multiple email campaigns to your neighbors. Only those who haven't voted, by the way. We don't pester folks who already have. But we'll send out as much as we need to get folks to participate with that strong call to action worded nicely to get them to participate, to get you to quorum, again, to meet your legal objectives. We also try to make it easy. The last thing we want is friction between your neighbors and our processes. So when they receive an email, they have a link that they can click that pre-fills part of the ballot for them, all their unique information about themselves. If they go off the paper letter that we send out, they can use any tablet, phone, whatever mobile device to scan the QR code that's on there that takes them directly into their own ballot. Quick, simple, very low friction. If for some reason they can't do either of those, each of those invitations will have a link on it with the information that the neighbor needs to put in. It takes them just a few seconds longer, but as long as they're proficient at typing, shouldn't take very long either. But again, we try to make it easy. That QR code and those direct links in emails make it fast and simple. As I mentioned, fast. The first time we did this, and Jeff, I don't know if you remember this one or not, our board meeting actually happened to be at the Oro Valley Library. We ran the process. I wrote this thing, and I was even surprised at how quickly the numbers came back. It was instantaneous. I sat there during that meeting and did a hand count to make sure it was correct. And it absolutely was, but it was fast, and it remains that fast. Technology works, it's been proven, and it's quick. We give you the results. We stand by the results because we know they're accurate. It works well. It works reliably no matter what kind of election you run. I know that we have associations out there that allow accumulation on their ballots. If you don't know what that is, you're probably better off. It's complicated, and our neighbors all have trouble with that process because it's a little bit weird. It doesn't feel natural for a vote, but we handle it. If you do have accumulation in your governing documents, we take care of you. We prefer not to, but we do because it really is complicated. It really does cause challenges for our neighbors. Again, I looked at this problem to solve as a responsibility towards the neighborhood where I was a custodian of the administratorship. I wanted to make sure that this was reasonable then, and I keep it reasonable now. It's intended to be affordable even for small communities so that they can leverage the power that Quorum gives them and the ability to complete those elections, especially when they haven't been able to for many, many years. So hopefully by this point, you're intrigued enough to want to know how it works, what the process looks like. So I've generated a fictional community here, and we're going to go through a sample ballot from them, pretending they had an election earlier this year. So as soon as one of our neighbors opens up that email and clicks, or uses that QR code, what they see is a welcome screen. Hopefully, by the way, you may have noticed that bird picture. Hopefully we have photography from your association so that people see how it is tied to their neighborhood. This is legitimate email and it feels comfortable to them. If they want to see the details, they absolutely can click that box and pop open the extra text. That gives them the opportunity to read a little bit about how the election is administered, and then they go click the next button. And this is the step that automatically fills in if you use that QR code or if you click a link. This automatically puts in your security code, your unit ID, lot number, apartment number, whatever it may be, and your email address that we have on file for that account. Clicking through this takes you into the ballot. As you can see, it's simple, it's straightforward, it's not a lot of text, it's right there, easy for our neighbors to get to. And with just a couple of clicks, they can decide who they would like to elect the board. If they want to pop in a write-in candidate, that's very simple as well. Very, very easy to do. Once they've handled that very important part of deciding who the directors should be, they can scroll down a little bit and handle minutes from the previous annual meeting. Or if this is not an annual meeting, you may have some kind of ballot measure in front of them. This is where they would handle that as well. As you can see in this sample, not only do we have the minutes, but we have a ballot measure for a land swap. So they can go in and make their selections on all of those kinds of items. And we ask them for one last step, which is effectively their consent to vote electronically. That's that authorization step at the very bottom. They check the box on that, click a button, and they're done. I've spent more time talking about the process than it actually takes. This genuinely is something that even our less tech-savvy neighbors can get done in 1 to 2 minutes. And we tell them that in the emails, and we will mention that in the letters, that it's a quick, simple, easy process. We're not trying to burden them. We're not trying to ask them to do a lot. We just want it to be easy and frictionless for our neighbors. Now, we've mentioned the invitations that they get, the mailed letters, the emails. Let's have a look at one of the mailed letters. This is what it looks like. Very professional, very clean, very simple. And included with the letter, as required by law, would be all the information that they need to get into their ballot, as well as previous meeting minutes, the agenda for the meeting, any other information that you need to include or you want to include with your neighbors. All of that we pack into the mailed letter and send that along. And as you can see, peeking out of the corner there is the QR code that gets them in right there on the first page. And when we send them an email, again, simple, concise, and right up at the very top, they have a button that'll get them into their own ballot. Yes, we give them the lot ID, we give them the security code, but they can get in with one click and have that pre-filled, again, to simplify the process, to reduce the friction. I hope you agree that this is a simple and easy process, but there are many other benefits to you as a community leader. You don't have to worry about the accuracy of the count. We present to you before your meeting begins slides that your association manager can present and a report with a paper representation of every ballot, again, as required by Arizona statute, but that you can then tally if you want and prove that the count is right. But you have that before you go into the meeting. It takes a minimum of effort now for you and your association manager to launch and chase your election. Really, the hardest part, I will be honest with you, the hardest part is reaching out ahead of time to get candidates to run. We could potentially help you with that as far as email campaigns, but you need to be doing that follow-up, and your association manager needs to do that follow-up. So that's the tough part. That one, unfortunately, stays with you guys, but we make all the rest of it so simple. We take so much of the burden off of your association manager. We end up returning a great deal of time that your community manager can then plow back into your association and your neighbors directly. This has helped associations that have needed to clean up or grow their email lists and to increase the participation there, which has so many great knock-on effects for making it easier for you to communicate with more of your neighbors as the year progresses. Everything that we send out, the invitations, the emails, everything is designed specifically for your neighborhood And again, we love it if you can send in good quality photography that we can use in those materials. Again, it helps legitimize the election because they know it's coming from their own neighborhood, but it makes it feel more like home, and we want that feeling. But like I said, it gives your manager time to focus on your neighbors, and that's really important to us. So it should be one big question rolling around in your mind. Okay, you talk about cutting the cost of this. How much is it really? Well, the pricing for your association is going to be all in. No nickel and diming, and we've done recent comparisons. There's a lot of nickel and dime stuff out there. It's a pain in the neck. I don't want to do that. I won't do that to you. The price is all in for the mailed letter, the email, for up to, depending on your association size, up to 3 emails and potentially an additional postcard mail campaign for those larger associations. It's built around that principle of success, of making sure that we have enough touch points built into the package so that we reach your neighbors enough times to get them to act, to get them to vote, to get you to quorum. And again, it's based on the size of your association. There's not just one blanket price. We do have breakpoints in there to keep it reasonable and keep it affordable for your association. Now, the pricing that you're going to see does not include the stationery and postage. We've partnered with the companies that Cadden uses for their printing, so it goes through the exact same processes that your association is already used to, and it comes out at the same pricing there. But they handle the printing, they handle the postage. We just send the letters over to them. And again, we'll include up to 3 email campaigns with each package. If you get quorum in one, which has happened, believe it or not, we stop there. We don't want to spam your neighbors. Now, we are going to go back if we pulled it off in only one and ask your association manager and possibly you as the board if you would like one more touch point out there. And you're certainly welcome to use all of those. But by default, we won't spam your neighbors. We're trying to be friendly. We're not trying to be annoying. On average, Cadden communities spend about $350 for quorum. Now, there are a few larger communities that do spend a little bit more than that. They cap out right around $500, but again, those are very big communities. The average is around $350. I can tell you from my research just within the past few weeks, the average with the others out there is a lot higher. And Jeff, I hope that you can back that up from what you've been seeing lately. Again, this is bespoke to Arizona. We don't have to deal with a big legal department dealing with associations all around the country. We can focus here. We can save costs here. We can benefit you here. And that's what we like to do. Jeff, I saw 1 or 2 questions came in. Do we want to tackle those before we get into how to launch a quorum election?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So one of the questions kind of goes back to right before you went into the cost of the product. It said, can you include census type questions as part of the voting process?
Census type meaning information gathering as opposed to actual yay nay votes.
Well, so part of it. So we could have, your typical ballot, and then maybe a portion of it saying, if you have a renter in your property, can you provide their information or contact information for emergencies, that type of questionnaire.
Absolutely, we can. Again, this is meant to be designed for the needs of your association. So when you have questions like that, we build them in, and that's included. That's not a nickel and dime thing. That's not an extra charge. If that's what you need on your ballot, that's what we put on your ballot. And there was an instance just, was it late last year, the beginning of this year? I think it was the end of last year. We had an association in Green Valley, which is an age-restricted community. And to be in compliance with FHA regulation, they require an attestation from all of their owners that they are in compliance with the rules for an age-restricted community that's non-discriminatory. That required 100% participation. That went far beyond just achieving quorum for the election. That needed everybody in the association to check that box. Now, we ended up with a hybrid approach where some of the neighbors actually received a piece of paper that they signed and dealt with that way. Everybody else we handled online. We could have gone all the way to 100% if folks wanted to participate that way. We met the needs of that association, and we're happy to do that. We're happy to accommodate in those kinds of situations whenever they arise. We build the solution that you need, not the solution that we want to prepackage. So hopefully that answers it well.
I think so. And then with that, could you make those responses mandatory for the ballot to be issued, or I guess
Absolutely.
returned?
And in the case of that association in Green Valley, we did, because it was so important. It was imperative. Yes.
Great. Well,
anything else?
That's all we have so far.
Okay, good. Well, keep the questions coming. So how to begin? Well, like I mentioned, the big part of this process here is getting candidates to run. So you definitely need to get that process started well ahead of time, at least 8 to 10 weeks out before you actually want the vote to occur, or rather before your meeting where you'll announce the results. You want to give time to get that information in, and take some time, run around your neighborhood. Cell phones have great cameras on them these days. Get a high resolution photo or two of a monument, a landmark, a beautiful plant, something that's recognizable about your neighborhood, your association, that we can then bake into the ballot, into the communications that go out. We love to have those. And I'm stressing that because we just don't get that photography often enough. I don't like just having to use the stock Southern Arizona photography that I've been able to collect over the past couple of years. I really like to build in something that's unique to your association. So hint, hint, take pictures, send them in with the ballot. We really do like to use them. Build in that time, though. Make sure that you're looking for candidates 8 to 10 weeks out, because we really do want to start this process about 6 weeks before your annual meeting, your special meeting, so that we have time enough to collect statements from those candidates if we need to, make sure that we have all of the T's crossed, I's dotted, I's crossed, T's dotted for the legal aspects of your election, and to make sure that we have time for mailing to get that paper invitation out. We are required to send out that piece of paper by law. Every neighbor gets that. But these days, the mail process has been a lot slower, and it's taking 7 to 10 days from submission to delivery in mailboxes. So make sure there's time. Give your association manager ample time to do that, to place the order and get through that process, so that we have somewhere typically between 3 and 4 weeks of active voting to get your neighbors engaged. All you have to do at that point is, in the meeting when you decide to do this, let your association manager know that you want to run a Cadden Quorum election, and they'll take care of the rest for you. Get your candidates in, get your photography in, and I go back and forth with your manager to get it done. That's all there is to it. It really is a simple process, not just for our neighbors, but for you as a board and for your association meeting. There's a lot that we do to differentiate the Cadden Quorum product from the other options that are out there. Hopefully we've covered a bunch of those, and you feel that value that we offer just in the conversation that we've had today. It's so important to me as the principle behind this product that we deliver on those promises to you. It helps you as the administrators of your board. It helps you as the administrators of your community. It helps your community manager and frees them up to work more closely with your association. I like to think it's a very good thing all around for a community to adopt a Cadden Quorum election. So I hope that we've expressed that to you well. I hope that you are convinced of that at this point. And I think all that's left to say is thank you for taking some time to listen to me